The laughter carried to the pine trees long before the first wall was finished, sharp and careless, echoing across the snowy valley as if it were part of the wind itself. Neighbors slowed their trucks, pointed from porches, and shook their heads at the strange sight of a narrow cabin rising upward instead of outward, 3 stacked levels squeezed into a footprint no bigger than a tool shed. They said it would never work. They said the cold would eat it alive. They said she was wasting what little she had left. What they did not know was that inside that unfinished structure, a quiet woman was building the warmest place she had ever known. If you believe in silent heroes, second chances, and people who keep going even when the world laughs at them, take a moment now to like this video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this survive because someone chooses to believe when no one else does. Her name was Margaret Collins, and by the time she started building that cabin, she had already lost almost everything that once defined her. She was 58, widowed, and living on a thin disability check after a workplace injury ended her career as a building inspector. The house she once shared with her husband had been sold to cover medical bills, and what remained of her life fit into a rusted trailer parked on borrowed land deep in the mountains of Montana. Winter was coming fast, and Margaret knew the trailer would not survive another season. Margaret had spent decades inspecting buildings, learning how heat moved, how air betrayed poorly designed spaces, and how small decisions decided whether people lived comfortably or suffered silently. While others saw cabins as wide, low, and sprawling, Margaret saw wasted heat and unnecessary exposure. She sketched late into the night by lantern light, designing something unconventional: a vertical cabin, 3 compact floors, minimal exterior surface, heat rising naturally through the structure instead of escaping sideways into the cold. When she began construction, the comments came immediately. People joked that she was building a tower for squirrels. They said snow load would crush it, wind would tear it apart, and no one in their right mind stacked living space like that in the mountains. Margaret listened without reacting. She had learned long ago that arguing wasted energy better saved for survival. The work was brutal. Every board was lifted by hand. Every joint measured twice because mistakes were expensive when you had no margin left. Her injured shoulder burned constantly, and there were days she had to stop, simply breathe through the pain. Some nights she cried alone, sitting on a pile of lumber, wondering if this was stubbornness or faith keeping her going. Still, every morning, she stood up and continued. By late autumn, the cabin stood complete. 3 levels, each smaller than the one below, wrapped in dense insulation and sealed tighter than anything her neighbors had ever seen. The ground floor housed a compact kitchen and thermal mass walls designed to absorb heat. The second floor was living and sleeping space. The top floor, tucked beneath a steep roof, acted as a heat capture chamber, trapping warmth during the day and releasing it slowly downward through the night. The first cold snap came early. Temperatures dropped suddenly, plunging below zero as a storm rolled in without warning. Margaret lit her small stove, not expecting much. She had prepared for discomfort, for long nights wrapped in blankets, for the familiar ache of cold settling into her bones. Instead, something remarkable happened. The air inside stabilized. Heat rose gently through the vertical space, lingering, circulating, refusing to escape. By morning, the cabin sat at a steady 67 degrees warmer than the outside air. Margaret noticed immediately. She checked her thermometer twice. Then a third time, she walked barefoot across the floor, feeling warmth where there should have been cold. She laughed softly, a sound she had not made in months, and pressed her hand against the wall as if thanking it for listening. Outside, the storm worsened. Roads iced over. Power lines snapped under the weight of snow. Neighbors who had mocked her design woke to frozen pipes and failing heaters. Firewood vanished fast, and fear crept in with the cold. That was when the knock started. Margaret opened her door without hesitation. One by one, neighbors stepped inside, stunned by the warmth. Coats came off. Shoulders relaxed. Children stopped shivering. No one laughed now. They sat quietly, absorbing heat and humility in equal measure. Margaret offered coffee, space, and silence. She did not remind them of their jokes. The proof surrounded them. Word spread quickly. People who had dismissed her as eccentric now asked questions. How did it work? Why did the heat stay? Could it be replicated? Margaret explained patiently, drawing diagrams on scrap paper, teaching principles she had carried quietly for years. She saw something shift in their eyes, not just understanding, but respect. As winter deepened, the cabin became a refuge. When storms trapped the valley for days, Margaret's home stayed warm with minimal fuel. She used less firewood than anyone else and shared what she saved. In doing so, she rebuilt something she thought was gone forever: belonging. By spring, visitors arrived from outside the valley. A local newspaper ran a small feature. Then a regional sustainability group reached out. They asked if she would be willing to demonstrate her design. Margaret hesitated and used to attention, but agreed, not for recognition, but because she remembered what it felt like to be dismissed while holding something valuable inside. The cabin that once drew laughter became a model. Builders came to study it. Engineers asked questions. Younger people listened closely. Margaret stood in her doorway, watching others learn from what had nearly broken her, and felt something settle inside her chest. Peace. Near the end of winter, as snow melted slowly from the pines, Margaret climbed to the top floor of her cabin and looked out across the valley. Smoke rose from chimneys below, thinner now, more efficient. The laughter was gone, replaced by something quieter and stronger: understanding. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you that quiet persistence can change lives, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. And before we end, we have one special request. Comment below and tell us this. Have you ever believed in an idea that others laughed at, only to see it prove itself true? Because sometimes the warmest places are not built with approval, but with patience, knowledge, and the courage to keep building when the world laughs.